Hi, Quest Cohort 20. It's Joe Bailey here. And as you prepare for your final presentations this week, I wanted to just give you some final thoughts and comments to keep in mind as you prepare to present. Hopefully you found my other video of an example presentation helpful, and hopefully you'll find the material in here to be consistent with that. First thing about the prototypes, again, make sure you have a product name. Hopefully that conveys what the product is. If you haven't yet already, you might want to try your product name out on people in your sister team and see if they can go ahead and describe what type of product they think that might be. Try to have a picture of the final product. Again, if you can bring in a prototype of your product, that's great too. But again, the picture doesn't necessarily have to be what the final prototype is going to be, especially since you may not have had a chance to build what your final version is. Do tell us about material selection. Again, what is the product made out of? Why did you pick those materials? How is that something that the customer wants? As well as what type of versions you think the product is. Not only the versions that maybe you went through for prototyping to come up with it, but what type of versions of the product would be sold in the marketplace. In general, I would say that the teams that Mel and I met with last week really did a great job of talking about the prototypes, things that they learned from making the prototype, so that was great. Let's talk a little bit about money. I think some teams are still confusing a little bit the cost of a product versus the price of the product. The cost is how much it is for you to make something, and the price would be how much that somebody would pay you for it. And again, as long as price is greater than cost, you should be making a positive profit margin. If you have a difficult time coming up with either cost or price, come up with some estimates. In general, when you don't know the cost, make sure you or try to go ahead and estimate costs based upon the cost of material that goes into a product, but also the amount of labor necessary to go ahead and make a product. I think sometimes we forget about that cost, but it's the production cost that sometimes drives the overall cost of a product. Additionally, if there's any type of transportation cost associated with that, that'd be good to look at. In terms of price, you could certainly look at other products that are in the marketplace and are comparable, or you could take a look at the value that customers will derive from this and go ahead and try to go ahead and make sure the price is as close to the value as possible, but not exceeding it. Otherwise, the customers won't pay for it. The fixed costs it's not that it's not important, but it's not as important as variable cost. In business, there's this notion of sunk cost. So after the fixed costs have been paid for and you can't recover them, they become sunk and don't affect any of your business decisions going forward. So try not to spend too much time thinking about all the fixed cost in development, in tooling up for your production process, in marketing your product. Again, these things should not have a real impact on the profit margin on a per product basis. And of course, a simple thing is just ask the question is, how much would you pay for this, or how much would somebody else pay for this? In general, the teams I met with were trying to pick prices that were comparable to existing technology or innovations that are out there. But if your product is better, go ahead and give yourself a higher price. The business model underpins your invention as well, or innovation. So think about how you're going to define the market. In general, there are four factors that define a market: the types of customers you have, the types of geography, what is your scale of production, and what is your product. So think about how you would define your market, and then think about the size of the marketplace that's out there. There might be a lot of competition in some markets and less competition in other markets. There's going to be a question about how big is this market. For some of your innovations, there may not be an existing market, but you can go ahead and take a look at the size of comparable type of markets. Also, try not to conflate what is a customer versus what is a user. Who is buying the product versus who is actually using the product. If you have a customer and a user that are different constituencies, you want to go ahead and make sure that your innovation appeals to both of them. Just recognize that the customer is the one who actually has to pay money for it, and the user is the one that you want to go ahead and listen to their voice when you're designing your product. Think about who is going to go ahead and help distribute the product. Are you doing a wholesale channel versus a retail channel? In other words, are you going to sell the product directly to the customers, and you'll have to develop that as part of your business plan, or will you rely on other people to sell it and you will just simply sell it wholesale to them? And last but not least, but think about the question is, there's value in your innovation, but value to whom? And are they the ones paying for it? I know there was one team that I met with that I really suggested to set a price as zero because the marginal cost is zero, and it's a little bit different than most other products that are kind of atoms based or things as opposed to digital goods or bits based products. But do think about how much value is being derived. The last but not least, with your tone of your presentation, think about in the beginning of your presentation how to appeal to the audience. In general, the salespeople say you have two ways to appeal to an audience. The first is through greed, right? Do this and you'll make more money. Do this and you'll free up time. Whatever resources that are scarce, money, time, connections, you can go ahead and play to that greed. Or fear, right? You wouldn't want to be stuck in this situation, and that's why our product or our innovation is the best. So think about how you can play to the greed side or the fear side of your audience. Make sure you talk about, in a very positive tone, how much you're pleased to go ahead and introduce your product, and focus on sentences like, we built this, not we are building, or we are in the process. Again, this is a final presentation, so you want to go ahead and try to have as positive as well as a I guess in the past tense or present tense, what it is that you built. I know that you have maybe a few more days before your final paper is due, but try not to go ahead and talk about all the work you have to do still. Focus on all the good things that you've done up to this point. Adopt language that's consistent and positive. I know Malin and I started your meetings last week by asking people to give their elevator pitches, and we want to go ahead and make sure that the whole team is on the same page. One thing your team might want to try is to go ahead and shuffle up the parts. So even though, let's say, you might be presenting on slide 4, if you can go ahead and present the material on slide 2, and you can swap with somebody presenting slide 4. Hear how other people are presenting the material that you're planning to present. And it might give you a good way to go ahead and find linkages and handoffs between them. There was great excitement for your products last week, and again, continue that. Excitement is very important. If you're not excited about our product, it's difficult for us to do that. And so last but not least, have fun with it. It really is a great week in the 190 class to hear about all your innovations and all the things that you put into it and how exciting it is that these innovations have the potential of really impacting a market, whether they're patented or not. So we look forward to hearing your presentations this week, and thanks for your time.